So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this event, which is supported by UNESCO and Empire Code Lovesback on supporting skills for women innovators. Today, we are going to be focusing on the sector engineering and technology. This regional training will enable students, underserved women or women in grassroots to participate in innovations, develop creative industry, contribute to local and national economic development, and nurture technopreneurship and business incubators. The project is part of the wider effort in implementing the 2030 Agenda and its SDGs, especially on goals 4, 5, 9, and 17 today. Now, my name is Jasmine Tang. I am the head of software development in Empire Code Launchpad. Empire Code Launchpad is a software development company as part of the Empire Code group of companies. I am giving this webinar today as part of engineering, as I have a degree in aeronautical and aerospace engineering from the University of Glasgow in the UK. I have exposure to programming in my first job and in data analytics at university. Now, this webinar is run by Empire Code Lovesback, which is the social enterprise arm of Empire Code. Empire Code, the companies include education, software development, as I mentioned, and Lovesback, which believes in social enterprise technology for everyone. Now, before I continue, I'd like to gratefully thank UNESCO for supporting this webinar. Now, let's go to start on the webinar. What we will cover today during this webinar, we're going to talk about the introduction to SDGs. Why should we care? Our focus goals for the day, women in innovation. Our focus sector for today, which is engineering and technology, industry innovation trends, education. Let's interact. Additional reading that we'll share with you, additional free training that I'm going to share with you at the end of this webinar. We'll have a Q&A session and a survey for you to fill out to be able to obtain your certificate of attendance. So let's start to the introduction of SDGs. Now, there are 17 goals to transform our world. The Sustainable Development Goals are a call for action by all countries, poor, rich, and middle income, to promote prosperity while protecting the planet. They recognize that ending poverty must go hand in hand with strategies that build economic growth and address a range of social needs, including education, health, social protection, and job opportunities, while tackling climate change and environmental protection. Most important than ever, the goals provide a critical framework for COVID-19 recovery. Now, why Sustainable Development Goals matter? They unlock and empower human, economic, and societal changes. More people around the world are living better lives compared to just a decade ago. More people have access to better healthcare, decent work, and education than ever before. But inequalities and climate change are threatening to undo the gains. Investment in inclusive and sustainable economies can unleash significant opportunities for shared prosperity, and the political, technological, and financial solutions are within reach. Now, there are 4 focus goals for this webinar series. The first one is on education. In 2020, as the COVID-19 pandemic spread across the globe, a majority of countries announced the temporary closure of schools, impacting more than 91% of students worldwide. By April 2020, close to 1.6 billion children and youth were out of school, and nearly 369 million children who rely on school meals needed to look for other sources of daily nutrition. Never before have we so many children been out of school at the same time, disrupting learning and impending lives, especially the most vulnerable and marginalized. The global pandemic has far-reaching consequences that may jeopardize hard-won gains made in improving global education. Now, education enables upward socioeconomic mobility and is key to escaping poverty. Over the past decade, major progress was made towards increasing all this access to education, with school enrollment rates at all levels, particularly for girls. You may have heard in the news, even in India, there are many cases of girls in underprivileged communities who have been forced into marriage because the parents could not afford to keep them at home as well. Now, this is a global problem as well, because about 260 million children were still out of school in 2018. And with what happened in the pandemic with 1.6 billion, we can see the mass effect of what happens in the pandemic too. Now, 1/5 of the global population in this age group already from 260 million kids. About more than half of our children and adolescents worldwide are not meeting minimum proficiency standards in reading and mathematics. A few definitions to think about here. What is social mobility? That is the movement of individuals, families, households, or other categories of people within or between social strata in a society. It is a change in social status relative to one's current social location within a given society. Proficiency is the fact of having that skill and experience for doing something. So we are here today to increase proficiency for everybody, and in particularly women for this focus webinar. Now, goal 5 is on gender equality and is achieved when women, men, girls, and boys have equal rights, conditions, and opportunities, and for them to have the power to shape their own lives and contribute to the development of society. There has been progress made over the last decades in empowering women and promoting gender equality. More girls are going to school. There are less girls, despite what's happening in the pandemic, being forced into early marriage. More women are serving in parliament and positions of leadership, and laws are being reformed to advance gender equality. Now, empowering women and girls is not only crucial in accelerating sustainable development, it ends all forms of discrimination against women and girls, as being a woman and a girl is a basic human right. It also has a multiplier effect across all other development areas. Now, what is empowerment? Empowerment is the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's lives and claiming one's rights. Now, we are here to empower today women to be innovative. Discrimination is the act of making unjustified distinctions between human beings based on the categories to which they are perceived to belong. And an example of this category is gender. So the education focus of this webinar is to enable people to understand what discrimination is and for us to stamp it out as well. The next goal we want to talk about is industries, innovation, and infrastructure. Innovation and the technological process and progress are key to finding lasting solutions to both economic and environmental changes, such as increased resource and energy efficiency. Globally, investment in research and development as a proportion of GDP increased from 1.5% to 1.7% in 2015 and has remained almost unchanged in 2017. Now, this is something we do not want at all. It has also always been less than 1% in developing regions. So this webinar's focus is also to increase this R&D in developing regions as well. We need this figure to increase for economic growth. Global manufacturing growth has been steadily declining, even before the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic is hitting manufacturing industries hard and causing disruptions in global value chains and the supply of products. The coronavirus pandemic has revealed the urgent need for resilient infrastructure. The ADB, or known as the Asian Development Bank, notes that critical infrastructure in the region remains far from adequate in many countries, despite the rapid economic growth and development the region has experienced over the past decade. The Economic and Social Survey of Asia and the Pacific highlights that making infrastructure resilient to disasters and climate change will require an additional investment of $434 billion per year. This sum may need to be even greater in some sub-regions, such as the Pacific Small Islands, developing states. Now, what is an industry? An industry is formed by a group of manufacturers or businesses that produce a particular kind of goods and service. Innovation is the action or process of making changes in something established, especially by introducing new methods, ideas, or products. Infrastructure is the physical structures and facilities, for example, your builds, your roads, your power supplies needed for the operation of a society or enterprise. Now, there are details on my previous webinar on infrastructure as well, if you'd like to look at the Empire Code YouTube, Empire Code LabSpec, or even UNESCO's learning platform. More details can be provided on the chat. Goal 17 is the partnership for the goals. All the SDGs that we have talked about cannot be realized without strong global partnerships and cooperation. A successful development agenda requires inclusive partnerships at the global, regional, national, and local levels. built upon principles and values and upon a shared vision and shared goals, placing people and the planet at the center. We are more powerful together. Now, Women in Innovation. I'm going to kickstart this webinar talking about some women in innovation and UNESCO's commitment to women in innovation as well. Over the next 5 years, UNESCO will increase access for girls and women to digital skills and competencies, STI and STEM education opportunities, including engineering, computer science, and informatics, to ensure gender equality in emerging STI fields, such as nanotechnologies and engineering for the SDGs and artificial intelligence. This webinar is also part of the whole series in increasing the digital skills for girls and women and in encouraging them in innovation. UNESCO will also provide access to STEM education to at least 2,000 girls per year in Africa through hands-on microscience. UNESCO will enable at least 2,000 women physicists per year globally under a program, Physics Without Borders, to take leadership roles amongst relevant university research programs. UNESCO will advance the scientific careers of young women scientists and give visibility to their scientific work in all related fields of technology and innovation through its partnership with L'Oreal UNESCO's Women in Science program and the Organization for Women Scientists in Developing Countries. UNESCO will support member states to review the national STEM education systems from a gender perspective, develop, monitor, and evaluate gender transformative STI policies and systems, particularly in Africa. UNESCO will support member states to close the digital gender divide, promote universal digital literacy and ethical use of AI that is free of gender bias and stereotypes through the implementation of the global recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence. In total, UNESCO will invest $24 million. Now I'm going to introduce you a Women in Innovation. This is NASA's Dr. Ellen Ochoa. She is here to inspire everyone today before we kickstart. More on this webinar.
We do a disservice to society as a whole if we are not providing the same kinds of encouragement to women to contribute as we do to men. So to me, it's all about understanding, that inherently women and men are of equal worth, have equal amounts to contribute, and we absolutely need to make sure that we are getting those contributions from women. I'm Ellen Ochoa, an inventor, a NASA astronaut, and director of Johnson Space Center. People often ask me, if I decided I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a little girl, and I say, well, of course I was following the Apollo program. I mean, I think everybody in the country was following the Apollo program, and I was 11 when they landed on the moon for the first time. Nobody was going to ask a girl at that time, hey, do you want to grow up and become an astronaut? Because women weren't astronauts and really weren't allowed to be astronauts.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of Space Shuttle Discovery.
It is a really exciting ride. You're at once you're trying to sort of experience the ride, but you're also paying attention to what's going on because you have to be ready at any second. The year before I went on this mission, I had been named to a presidential commission on the celebration of women in American history. So one of the things I thought of as I was going through this commission, knowing that I was going to be heading into space and that there were 3 women on the flight, was to get one of these flags from the National Women's Party that was used in the early part of the 20th century as women were fighting for the right to vote. So I was able to get a flag and to bring it with me into space, and then to be able to unfurl it in the new International Space Station, which was so significant because of the part that it played in getting women the right to vote. Getting a patent wasn't something I'd ever thought about when I first went to graduate school, or even, probably most of the way through my research, but we got to a point where I think my main thesis advisor, Professor Goodman, suggested that we talk to our, patent and technology office at Stanford. I certainly never thought of myself as an inventor, and I didn't go to graduate school to become an inventor or to get a patent. It really kind of came up as part of the process. I mean, there's so many different ways that invention and innovation are used in our society today, but it is a way that people can contribute from all walks of life. I never really thought about being a mentor to others till I was well into my career. And yet I see college students who are wonderful mentors to high school students. I see high school students who are wonderful mentors to middle school students. I wish I had thought a little bit more about that when I was those ages, but you don't have to wait, till you're older to really make an impact on other people's lives. I know myself how important it is to see somebody else doing that maybe you have something in common with or can relate to in some way. It was certainly an inspiration for me when the first 6 women were selected for the astronaut program, and Sally Ride in particular, because she was a physics major like me, because she went to Stanford, which is where I went for graduate school. And that helped me picture myself as an astronaut, which really seemed, like such an impossible dream. So I know how powerful that can be. And if there's anything that I can do to help students, just dream bigger dreams, have bigger goals, think about doing more than maybe they would have otherwise, then that's just hugely rewarding to me. I think about how I draw inspiration for the women who came before me and how meaningful that is to me. And to think that I might have that role in other women's lives. I think it's just another gift that I've gotten from NASA with what I've been able to do there.
And now let's begin on our focus sector for today. I hope Dr. Ellen has inspired all of us. In engineering and technology, engineering involves the application of scientific, theoretic, and economic knowledge to research, invent, design, and build structures, devices, and systems, making for a broad discipline that encompasses specialized fields of engineering. Technology involves placing science or knowledge into practical use to solve problems or event useful solutions. But how can one be innovative in this sector? Now, before I start this webinar, despite my engineering degree, I'd like to share that to be an engineer, you do not need an engineering degree. All of us have engineer mindsets in us. It's how we're going to use it. So today, let's talk about some innovators in engineering. Elon Musk, Chief Engineer, Chief Executive Officer, and Engineer, best known for PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, and The Boring Company. Elon Musk does not have an engineering degree. He has a physics degree, which is also very important for space. James Dyson, British inventor, industrial designer, farmer, and entrepreneur, best known for innovating the vacuum cleaner. Now, James Dyson doesn't have an engineering degree either. In fact, he has an arts degree. But James Dyson has always been very interested in looking at things and opening things up. Lynn Conway, American computer scientist, electrical engineer, innovator, and transgender activist, best known for improving the performance of modern computers. Now, apart from this three, Lynn Conway does have a computer science engineering background. But let's talk about a little bit more about each of them. For Elon Musk, the US government and some of its major aerospace contractors have tried to tackle the problem of reusable rockets and spacecraft for several decades. Even after spending hundreds of billions of dollars on these technologies in development and flight costs, neither the government nor its traditional aerospace contractors have mastered the art of flying vehicles to space, recovering them, and turning them around for new missions quickly and at a low cost. I'm not sure if anybody here has watched the Hollywood film Interstellar. If you watch Interstellar, Matthew McConaughey stars in it. You'll see them taking off and landing in these rockets, and they're taking off and landing in the same rockets. Now, this is what SpaceX is trying to do. With the Falcon 9 rocket, SpaceX carried forward the concept of vertically launching and landing a rocket. He made all this possible, Elon Musk. The Falcon 9 rocket is partially reusable, and the firm is currently developing the Starship, designed as a fully reusable ship capable of sending humans to Mars. The next one is James Dyson. The Hoover vacuum was invented in 1908, but Dyson came up with an idea in the 1970s to build a vacuum without the need for replacement bags. Now, when he first started, no manufacturer or distributor in the UK would handle his product, as it would have disturbed the valuable market for replacement dust bags. Now, I don't know if you know, but there are many industries that rely on replacements for revenue. Another example is the Gillette shaver, and how all its shaving cartridges are replaceable so that people will keep buying the shaving cartridges. So Dyson had the exact same problem with the vacuum. Dyson's breakthrough in the UK market came more than 10 years after the initial idea, through a TV advertising campaign in which it was emphasized that unlike most of its rivals, the Dyson vacuum did not require the continuing purchase of replacement bags. Never give up on an idea is what I have to say here. The second thing also with Dyson was they figured out a way of making the suction of the dust come into a transparent cylinder. And people enjoyed looking at the dust collecting in the transparent cylinder because they would see, oh, my house is so clean. I've cleared up all this dust. Very innovative indeed. Now, with Lynn Conway, you've likely never heard of her. She's 82 years old, and she's a computer scientist. And her discoveries powers your smartphones and computers. Lynn Conway's research led to successful startups in Silicon Valley. She supported national defense and powered the internet. Her invention of dimensionless scalable design rules greatly simplified chip design and design tools. She also invented a new form of internet-based infrastructure for rapid prototyping and short-run fabrication of large numbers of chip designs. Prior to this, Lynn had worked at IBM, where she generalized dynamic instruction handling, a key advance used in out-of-order execution, used by most modern computer processors to improve performance. In 2020, IBM apologized for firing Lynn for her being transgender. Lynn was born a boy. This was 52 years later that they had apologized. Well, nevertheless, they did. So here we have 3 very exciting innovators in engineering. Now, the job options in engineering are vast. You can be an aerospace engineer, agriculture engineer, you can be an automotive, biomedical, chemical, civil, computer, data, drafting and design, electrical, environmental, and geological. You can also be in marine, mechanical, petroleum, and software. There's lots more to engineering than you could ever imagine. And in technology, you can be an accessibility specialist, an agile software developer, an AI engineer, a business intelligence analyst, a cloud administrator, a computer hardware engineer. You can also be a computer systems analyst, a data analyst, an ethical hacker, ethical I might add, a front-end developer, which means you're working on websites and what people can see on websites and apps. You can be a full stack developer, an IT security specialist, a mobile application developer, an SEO consultant, a statistician, user experience design, user interface design, and a video game developer. The opportunities are endless in this sector. Now, in biggest industry innovation trends, I'm going to be focusing on 6 today. The first is AI. The second is big data. The third is blockchain. 4th is cloud computing. 5 is the Internet of Things, also known as IoT. And the 6th is robotic process automation, also known as RPA. Now, the field of AI began in 1956. You might think this is a really long time ago, but it's true. That concept has evolved since post-World War II. It has also been only in the last decade, however, that significant progress has been made to allow the technology to be widely used and experienced by many outside technology circles. Today, artificial intelligence is one of the fastest growing emerging technologies and describes machines that can perform tasks and previously required human intelligence. Machine learning takes AI a step further. It's one of the latest AI technologies where machines can learn by taking in data, analyzing it, taking action, and then learning from the results of the action. So pretty much we're replicating our brain process here with machine learning. Now, in this video that I'm going to get you started on, we will understand what is artificial intelligence, the difference between artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning, examples of artificial intelligence as well.
Picture this, a machine that could organize your cupboard just as you like it, or serve every member of the house a customized cup of coffee. Makes your day easier, doesn't it? These are the products of artificial intelligence. But why use the term artificial intelligence? Well, these machines are artificially incorporated with human-like intelligence to perform tasks as we do. This intelligence is built using complex algorithms and mathematical functions. But AI may not be as obvious as in the previous examples. In fact, AI is used in smartphones, cars, social media feeds, video games, banking, surveillance, and many other aspects of our daily life. The real question is, what does an AI do at its core? Here is a robot we built in our lab, which is now dropped onto a field. In spite of a variation in lighting, landscape, and dimensions of the field, the AI robot must perform as expected. This ability to react appropriately to a new situation is called generalized learning. The robot is now at a crossroad, one that is paved and the other rocky. The robot must determine which path to take based on the circumstances. This portrays the robot's reasoning ability. After a short stroll, the robot now encounters a stream that it cannot swim across. Using the plank provided as an input, the robot is able to cross this stream. So our robot uses the given input and finds the solution for a problem. This is problem solving. These three capabilities make the robot artificially intelligent. In short, AI provides machines with the capability to adapt, reason, and provide solutions. Well, now that we know what AI is, let's have a look at the two broad categories an AI is classified into. Weak AI, also called narrow AI, focuses solely on one task. For example, AlphaGo is a maestro of the game Go, but you can't expect it to be even remotely good at chess. This makes AlphaGo a weak AI. You might say Alexa is definitely not a weak AI, since it can perform multiple tasks. Well, that's not really true. When you ask Alexa to play Despacito, it picks up the keywords play and Despacito and runs a program it is trained to. Alexa cannot respond to a question it isn't trained to answer. For instance, try asking Alexa the status of traffic from work to home. Alexa cannot provide you this information, as she is not trained to. And that brings us to our second category of AI, strong AI. Now, this is much like the robots that only exist in fiction as of now. Ultron from Avengers is an ideal example of a strong AI. That's because it's self-aware and eventually even develops emotions. This makes the AI's response unpredictable. You must be wondering, well, how is artificial intelligence different from machine learning and deep learning? We saw what AI is. Machine learning is a technique to achieve AI, and deep learning, in turn, is a subset of machine learning. Machine learning provides a machine with the capability to learn from data and experience through algorithms. Deep learning does this learning through ways inspired by the human brain. This means through deep learning, data and patterns can be better perceived. Ray Kurzweil, a well-known futurist, predicts that by the year 2045, we would have robots as smart as humans. This is called the point of singularity. Well, that's not all. In fact, Elon Musk predicts that the human mind and body will be enhanced by AI implants, which would make us partly cyborg.
Now, thank you for that. I've got Despacito in my head now. There's another thing interesting with this. Not only was he talking about AI, but he talked about Alexa. Alexa on wheels just got introduced. It's like having a puppy dog robot in your living room to protect your home. It's very interesting. Now, the next one we want to talk about is the impact of artificial intelligence. Now, there are 4 impacts of artificial intelligence. They are on machine learning, manufacturing, natural language processing, also known as NLP, and jobs. One of the most significant technology concepts for the future of AI engineering is machine learning. Machine learning is the study of exactly how machines learn. The ultimate goal of AI is not just to have machines that can learn, but to have machines that are capable of self-analysis, such as machine could assess the efficiency of its learning methods and refine its processes to a much greater degree. But what would the practical applications of machine learning look like? Imagine if every one of the robotic arms that put cars together contained a tiny camera. Each arm could then review the work of previous robots along the assembly line. If they were to identify an issue, they could then formulate a solution. So it's very clever. The technology is in place to accomplish the first part. A high-resolution video of half-assembled car can be taken and algorithms developed to identify whether there are any clear faults. The next step is having the robots respond to the fault based on what they see. Machine learning takes this process to the next level. Within machine learning, the data collected by all the robots involved in production can be put together, and it is possible via a central control to learn which problems are most likely to appear. That central AI would subsequently be able to formulate solutions to problems rather than simply following predefined outcomes and routines. Now, manufacturing and the rise of AI promises the development of machines capable of performing even more complicated manufacturing tasks. This includes design tasks as well. Machines that are able to learn and improve without human interventions are the ultimate goal, and this would have significant and far-reaching implications. Many engineers fear their jobs could soon be taken over by sufficiently advanced robots. As manufacturing and design capabilities continue to expand, machinery has been built that is capable of replicating just about everything that a human can do on an assembly line. This means that automation has different jobs away from people in a number of areas. Now, my take on this is, instead of being worried about losing current jobs, we've got to learn to embrace new technology and upskill ourselves to be prepared to have jobs in new technologies instead. Now, NLP, or natural language processing, is a field of study dedicated to improving the ability of humans and machines to communicate. In particular, NLP aims to improve the sophistication with which machines can respond to the human voice. As with machine learning, NLP makes use of large data sets and algorithm-based learning, such as getting data sets of your voice constantly. Think of the voice assistant as a smartphone. Over the past decade, the accuracy with which they hear and transcribe our voices has improved. But while a phone might be able to identify the spoken word, this is by no means the same as understanding what you're trying to say, which would mean understanding your tone of voice. Currently, a phone looks for certain words and it understands to work out what someone is asking based on context only. It then responds based on action and sometimes vocalizes a response. NLP aims to refine this process by allowing the machine to develop a deeper understanding of language. If this understanding is refined enough, then it will reach a point where the machine can deduce what someone wants when presented with an entirely new command or request. If an engineer is trying to work out how to reinforce a particular feature in their design, it would be beneficial if they could simply ask the computer. Or in the case of an assembly line, imagine the advantages if a human overseer could give the robots feedback. They could ask the robots to perform their roles in a slightly different way, to make adjustments, or even to try new things and analyze the result for greater time and cost-saving efficiencies. Now, it's quite funny because people of my generation tend to type questions in Google for things they want to ask. I have my daughter, and since she was 7, I would hear her in the background going, "Hey Siri, how do you spell a particular word?" So the younger generation is definitely picking up. And with the younger generation being more inquisitive, they're going to be asking questions on why Siri or any other NLP program can't understand their emotional tone of voice as well soon. Now, the last one is the impact on jobs. So we have talked about a little bit about jobs here on the previous impacts, but basically no discussion of the impact that AI is having on engineering would be complete without mentioning or focusing on this either. In many places, there are widespread fears and anxieties surrounding automation. As machines begin to replace humans in certain jobs, there are worries that there will eventually eventually have no need to hire people at all. Now, this is not true. There are still going to be jobs, but the jobs are just going to pivot. It should be acknowledged that the threat to jobs, despite being real, people should be constantly upskilled, constantly taught to be innovative, and constantly being reminded not to be scared about innovation. And this is because long-term wise, researchers agree that the benefits of automation outweigh the potential drawbacks. In the case of engineers specifically, AI is opening some new exciting horizons for us. These new opportunities should be embraced. It is important to realize that many of these advances will make a big difference to our ability to tackle the biggest issues facing our civilization. Now, how do you want to get started or more work on AI? Here's some courses that are offered in the market, many of them free. AI chatbots without programming, offered by IBM on EDX. AI for everyone, offered by deeplearning.ai on Coursera. AI foundations for everyone's specialization, offered by IBM on Coursera. Computer science for AI, offered by Harvard University on EDX. And learn with Google AI, offered by Google Education. Additional learning materials, if you'd like to read up more, here are some articles which include AI in Engineering by Science Direct. I'm a big fan of Science Direct, by the way. Elon Musk has something to say on AI. Some bits a little bit scary, but it's worth the watch. Engineering Applications of AI by Science Direct again. Machine Learning Engineer course by Simply Learn. And What is AI Exactly by Cold Fusion. Now let's move on to the next topic. Big data. I'm going to explain what big data is first before we move on to it. Now, firstly, data is crucial for making all kinds of decisions. It refers to the stored information and recorded operations which are performed by the computer in various forms. Big data can be understood as the same data being present in huge amounts and numbers. This consists of information powered by both humans and their devices. Big data is so large and complex in its size and storage that it is unable to be deciphered and understood efficiently by the traditional data management tools. In other words, you are not going to be able to use your Excel sheet to understand big data. Data engineers design, build, test, integrate, and optimize data collected from multiple sources. They use big data tools and technologies to construct free-flowing data pipelines that facilitate real-time analytics applications on complex data. Since everything leaves a digital footprint, the unprecedented digitalization of our world has created opportunities for us to gain new insights from data that wasn't possible before. These insights help us to improve business operations and increase revenue. Now let's understand big data in more depth. In this video, we will understand what is big data, what is data, the types of data, structured, unstructured, semi-structured data, structured versus unstructured data, what is machine-generated data, human-generated data, and examples of machine data.
Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to stay updated with Knowledge Hut.
Hello and welcome to Knowledge Hut. In this video, let's learn about what big data is and how it's classified. Let us begin by defining the term data. If you do a quick Google search, then you will find that data is defined as the qualities, characters, or symbols on which operations are performed by a computer, which may be stored and transmitted in the form of electrical signals and recorded on magnetic, optical, or mechanical recording media. In simple words, we can say that all the facts and figures which can be stored in digital format can be termed as data. All the text, numbers, images, audios, videos stored in our phones and computers are some examples of data. They are all digitally stored and comprised of zeros and ones. Please remember that data is a plural term. The singular term for data is datum. The concept of big data is nothing complex. As the name suggests, big data refers to copious amounts of data, which are too large to be processed and analyzed by traditional tools. Since the amount of big data increases exponentially, more than 500 terabytes of data are uploaded to Facebook's database alone in a single day. It represents a real problem in terms of analysis. So you may be thinking that if this big data is so problematic, then why is everyone so obsessed about it? Well, the answer lies in the benefits it provides. Here are some real-world examples of the ways in which big data is used. Netflix collects user behavior data from its more than 100 million customers. This data helps Netflix in understanding what every individual customer wants to see. Based on the analysis, it recommends movies and TV shows which the viewer will love to watch. As a result, the customer is happy because he is getting what he likes without even searching for it. And Netflix is happy because it has delighted its customers, which will result in higher customer retention. Credit card companies collect and store the real-time data of when and where the credit cards are being swiped. This data helps them in thwarting fraud detection. Suppose a credit card is used at location A for the first time. Then, after 2 hours, the same card is being used at location B, which is 5,000 kilometers away from location A. Now, it is practically impossible for a person to travel 5,000 kilometers in 2 hours, and hence it becomes clear that someone is trying to fool the system. These were just 2 examples. Big data has hundreds of different applications in hundreds of different fields, be it banking, communication, healthcare, media, advertising, manufacturing, transportation, and retail. Big data can be used everywhere, and this is why more and more businesses are trying to harness its power. Classification is essential for the study of any subject. So big data is widely classified into 3 main types, which are structured, unstructured, and semi-structured data. Structured data. Structured data is used to refer to the data which is already stored in databases in an ordered manner. It accounts for about 20% of the total existing data and is used the most in programming and computer-related activities. There are 2 sources of structured data, machines and humans. All the data received from sensors, web logs, and financial systems are classified under machine-generated data. These include medical devices, GPS data, data of usage statistics captured by servers and applications, and the huge amount of data that usually move through trading platforms, to name a few. Human-generated structured data mainly includes all the data that humans input into computers, such as names and other personal details. When a person clicks a link on the internet or even makes a move in a game, data is created. This can be used by companies to figure out their customers' behavior and make the appropriate business decisions and modifications. Unstructured data. While structured data resides in the traditional row-column databases, unstructured data is the opposite. They have no clear format in storage. The rest of the data created, about 80% of the total, account for unstructured big data. Most of the data a person encounters belong to this category, and until recently, there was not much to do except storing it or analyzing it manually. Unstructured data is also classified based on its source, machine-generated or human-generated. Machine-generated data accounts for all the satellite images, the scientific data from various experiments, and radar data captured by various facets of technology. Human-generated unstructured data is found in abundance across the internet, since it includes social media data, mobile data, and website content. This means that the pictures we upload to Facebook or Instagram handle, the videos we watch on YouTube, and even the text messages we send, it all contributes to the gigantic heap that is unstructured data. Semi-structured data. The line between unstructured data and semi-structured data has always been unclear, since most of the semi-structured data appear to be unstructured at a glance. Information that is not in the traditional database format as structured data, but contains some organizational properties which make it easier to process, are included in the semi-structured data. For example, no SQL documents are considered to be semi-structured, since they contain keywords that can be used to process the document easily. Big data analysis has been found to have definitive business value, and its analysis and processing can help a company achieve cost reductions and dynamic growth. So it is imperative that you do not wait too long to exploit the potential of this excellent business opportunity. This was all about big data and the types of big data. Don't forget to subscribe to Knowledge Hut for more such.
Well, thank you, Knowledge Hut, for the video. And let's move on. Artificial intelligence, business intelligence, data science, exploratory analytics, and operational analytics. A lot of big words for impact of big data, but let's go through them one by one. Now, we talked about AI before, but how does AI work with big data? Data is a commodity unlike any other that the world has known. It is extremely valuable financially, but it can also be used directly in order to give a business a massive edge over the competition. Now, AI, especially in its most sophisticated implementation, relies heavily on large data sets and algorithmic learning. One of the most exciting applications of AI within the field of engineering is machine learning. Now, machine learning is dependent upon the constant generation and analysis of data. It is via the process of extensively collecting data about performance and subsequently analyzing it that AI is able to learn. If the program is equipped with the right algorithms to identify mistakes and formulate solutions, then it can perform a process and continuously refine it. For engineers who are working on large-scale public projects, big data will be a staple of their work. Big data analysis can tell researchers in unprecedented detail where the flow of people in urban environments is at. This, in turn, means that public infrastructure decisions can be based on objective scientific analysis. It's a lot to take in, isn't it? Also, within the context of engineering for public works, big data can be used to analyze how well certain solutions can perform when implemented elsewhere. Big data can also allow for an objective and detailed comparison of how similar the current environment is to ones where the solution has never been used before. This is relatively simple when using big data analytic techniques, but would be a long and expensive process to complete otherwise. Now, business intelligence and reporting. Building static reports of business intelligence tools, you can use things like Tableau, Metabase, Microsoft's Power BI, or even Looker, which is used by a select few within organizations. What is the process of business intelligence and reporting? It requires constructing reports, creating charts, dashboards on the business intelligence tool. We also call them BI tools for short, by the way. And depending upon the capabilities of each, we use all of this information to build a trusted, high-quality data storage layer upon which the reports work on. Now, use cases of this. Static reporting to answer specific questions about the business. We can use BI reporting to track key performance indicators and metrics to identify business issues. We can use BI tools to optimize business processes. We can also use BI tools to aid in business planning and decision making. Now, next is data science. Producing predictive data models to power applications or operational workflows is the concept of data science. What is the process? The process of data science includes building a raw data layer, like a data lake or data pool, we also call that, to hold vast amounts of data in its native format, including structured and unstructured data types. It involves creating sophisticated machine learning models to predict future scenarios by finding patterns within existing large historical data sets. Now, the use cases of this for data science includes customer segmentation, anomaly detection, lifetime value prediction, recommendation engines, or rather tools that you can continue using again and again, and sentiment analysis. And what is sentiment analysis? The concept of data analyzing a person's sentiments, basically, or what the person thinks, really. Now, the next is exploratory analytics. Now, this is often the beginning of a new project where you have multiple questions but no concrete answer, or the requirements are still being finalized. So you're basically exploring the analytics of something or a new project that you're going to be working on. Now, what do we normally use for exploratory analytics? It sounds like such a big word, but we do this very often. And you do this every day without realizing. You take out a notebook, you start writing. what you want to capture in the project. You take out a spreadsheet. That's what I enjoy doing, or most engineers and accountants enjoy doing. We work around spreadsheets. Everything's a spreadsheet for everything. You take out a spreadsheet and you start making your notes. For non-accountants and engineers, quite often you take out a notepad, or you take out a Microsoft Word doc, or you take out a Google doc and you start writing on it. That is all part of this analytics. There's no concrete single data source or data models at this phase. You are the person collecting and the data. You're the one writing the data down. Now, the use cases of this is you want to try and identify patterns within what you're trying to do. You want to try and fit things together within what you're trying to do. You want to understand the characteristics of your project. So that's what you're trying to do here. Last but not least is operational analytics. This is the process of putting the data access and sharing the data back to the customer-facing teams. So as an operational analytical person, you look at everything in the operations, such as it boils down to how efficient your manpower is. It boils down to even things like what are your most popular softwares, anything to do with the flow of the business and managing the business or managing the project. Now, the process involves amalgamating data from multiple sources into a warehouse and generating insights from the same warehouse. It can just be a pool, a data pool as well here that you're looking at. Then you take the data back into your centralized warehouse, like a CRM or any support tool, for example, and you put it all together and you pass it on to somebody that needs to see it, which includes your salespeople, your organization, or even your managers. Now, use cases for it. You want to drive new sales opportunities. You need to understand your data. You need to understand where the revenue is coming from, what your highest selling product is, for example, even in engineering or construction, what your highest selling equipment are. You want to prioritize customer tickets and issues. You want to create more segmentation within the organization as well to provide more efficiency. Now, how else can you get started on big data? There are many ways. There is the Applied Data Science with Python Specialization course, and this is offered by the University of Michigan on Coursera. There's the Big Data Specialization course offered by the University of California in San Diego on edX. There's the Data Science Specialization offered by Johns Hopkins University on Coursera. There's the Introduction to Big Data offered by the University of California, San Diego on Coursera. There's also the Introduction to Data Science offered by Metis. It's one of my favorites as well, by the way. Now, the next one on additional learning materials and research papers, I recommend these few, which include Big Data Analytics in Engineering Applications by HBM Prinskia, Big Data and its Opportunities for the Engineering Companies by Savonia, Big Data Development Platform for Engineering Applications by the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, IEEE. It's a fantastic platform, by the way. I do go there a lot for my engineering tools, and that's something I also recommend you keep. Big Data Tutorial for Beginners by Edurika, and how big data can make big impact. Findings from a systematic review and a longitudinal case study by ResearchGate. ResearchGate is also one of my other favorite data platforms. I call them data as well, to give me a pool of research. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is blockchain. Now, I'm not going to answer any questions. I'm going to wait till the end of the webinar, by the way. So if there's anything you want to put down now, please do feel free to put out in chat and Q&A, and Eric will help sort you out on some of the questions to begin with. Now, blockchain. Blockchain is a system of recording information in a way that makes it difficult or impossible to change, hack, cheat the system. A distributed ledger or blockchain is nothing but a highly secure database. The blockchain is something everybody tends to ask about because people always go, oh, everybody's talking about it. What is it? So here it is, nothing more than a highly secure database. It is not rocket science. Blockchain securely stores and accurately records data, which has broad applications in accounting and financial records, and also accounting and financial records for engineering is most important. Some advantages of blockchain include enabling smart contracts, protecting and transferring ownership of assets, and verifying people's identities and credentials. Once blockchain is widely adopted and approved more extensively by industries and governments, It can benefit businesses by reducing costs, increasing traceability, and enhancing security. Now let's watch this video for us to understand what is blockchain, how do they work, why blockchains are so special as well.
Blockchains are incredibly popular nowadays. But what is a blockchain? How do they work? What problems do they solve? And how can they be used? Like the name indicates, a blockchain is a chain of blocks that contains information. This technique was originally described in 1991 by a group of researchers and was originally intended to timestamp digital documents so that it's not possible to backdate them or to tamper with them, almost like a notary. However, it went by mostly unused until it was adapted by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009 to create the digital cryptocurrency Bitcoin. Now, a blockchain is a distributed ledger that is completely open to anyone. They have an interesting property. Once some data has been recorded inside a blockchain, it becomes very difficult to change it. So how does that work? Well, let's take a closer look at a block. Each block contains some data, the hash of the block, and the hash of the previous block. The data that is stored inside a block depends on the type of blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain, for example, stores the details about a transaction in here, such as the sender, receiver, and the amount of coins. A block also has a hash. You can compare a hash to a fingerprint. It identifies a block and all of its contents, and it's always unique, just as a fingerprint. Once a block is created, its hash is being calculated. Changing something inside the block will cause the hash to change. So in other words, hashes are very useful when you want to detect changes to blocks. If the fingerprint of a block changes, it no longer is the same block. The third element inside each block is the hash of the previous block. And this effectively creates a chain of blocks, and it's this technique that makes a blockchain so secure. Let's take an example. Here we have a chain of 3 blocks. As you can see, each block has a hash and the hash of the previous block. So block number 3 points to block number 2, and number 2 points to number 1. Now the first block is a bit special. It cannot point to previous blocks because, well, it's the first one. We call this block the Genesis block. Now let's say that you tamper with the second block. This causes the hash of the block to change as well. In turn, that will make block 3 and all following blocks invalid because they no longer store a valid hash of the previous block. So changing a single block will make all following blocks invalid. But using hashes is not enough to prevent tampering. Computers these days are very fast and can calculate hundreds of thousands of hashes per second. You could effectively tamper with a block and recalculate all the hashes of other blocks to make your blockchain valid again. So to mitigate this, blockchains have something that is called proof of work. It's a mechanism that slows down the creation of new blocks. In Bitcoin's case, it takes about 10 minutes to calculate the required proof of work and add a new block to the chain. This mechanism makes it very hard to tamper with the blocks because if you tamper with one block, you'll need to recalculate the proof of work for all the following blocks. So the security of a blockchain comes from its creative use of hashing and the proof of work mechanism. But there is one more way that blockchains secure themselves, and that is by being distributed. Instead of using a central entity to manage the chain, blockchains use a peer-to-peer network and everyone is allowed to join. When someone joins this network, he gets a full copy of the blockchain. The node can use this to verify that everything is still in order. Now, let's see what happens when someone creates a new block. That block is sent to everyone on the network. Each node then verifies the block to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with. And if everything checks out, each node adds this block to their own blockchain. All the nodes in this network create consensus. They agree about what blocks are valid and which aren't. Blocks that are tampered with will be rejected by other nodes in the network. So to successfully tamper with a blockchain, You'll need to tamper with all the blocks on the chain, redo the proof of work for each block, and take control of more than 50% of the peer-to-peer network. Only then will your tampered block become accepted by everyone else. So this is almost impossible to do. Blockchains are also constantly evolving. One of the most recent developments is the creation of smart contracts. These contracts are simple programs that are stored on the blockchain and can be used to automatically exchange coins based on certain conditions. More on smart contracts in a later video. The creation of blockchain technology piqued a lot of people's interest. Soon others realized that this technology could be used for other things, like storing medical records, creating a digital notary, or even collecting taxes. So now you know what a blockchain is, how it works on a basic level, and what problems it solves. Want to learn how you can implement a simple blockchain in JavaScript? Then check out this video here. And as always, thank you very much for watching.
Now, you understand more about blockchain now. Let's talk about the impact of blockchain. Blockchain has 5 impacts: cost reduction due to unplanned maintenance, fewer errors, product innovation, storage of lifecycle information, and supply chain visibility. Now, in the aerospace industry, for example, having a more accurate view of a plane's configuration and maintenance history could help reduce costs and losses related to downtime and unplanned maintenance. So this is where the cost reduction comes in. Cost reduction will not only boost the value of the planes in the secondary market at the end of the leases, it will also improve worker productivity. For fewer errors, smart contracts embedded in the ledger could make paper-based documentation, inbound quality assurance, and testing processes obsolete. And for product innovation, it enables us to gain a greater understanding of how customers use products, supports customer-centric innovation, and individually tailored products and services. The fourth is the storage of lifecycle information, as particularly in the construction industry. In civil construction, the distributed ledger in blockchain can store lifecycle information about every asset in a building. This includes the building project, life warranty, certifications, replacements. You can use building information management, called BIM technology as well, to replicate the construction project and so as to set it up within the blockchain as well. So lifecycle information is extremely important in this part of the industry. Now, also in other manufacturing design industries, we do want to look at lifecycle information as well. The last is supply chain visibility. A better view of demand and consumption patterns could enable real-time optimized demand planning and production scheduling, virtually eliminating overstocks and rushed orders. So with the 5 impacts on blockchain, we want to move on next about where you can get started on understanding more about blockchain. We have Blockchain Basics offered by the University of Buffalo on Coursera. We have Blockchain Theory 101 offered by the University of Buffalo on Coursera again. We have Blockchain Theory 101 offered by Melanie Swan on Udemy. Blockchain Specialization is the one offered by the University of Buffalo on Coursera. We have Blockchain Understanding Its Use and Implications by the Linux Foundation on edX. And lastly, we have Introduction to Enterprise Blockchain offered by 101 Blockchains. I'm a big fan of 101 Blockchains, by the way. Now, next, in terms of reading materials, I have a few recommendations here for you. An overview of blockchain science and engineering by the Royal Society, Blockchain Technologies, a tutorial for engineering faculty and researchers by the University of Southern California, Blockchain Technology and Digital Engineering by ResearchGate, Blockchain Technology Implications and Opportunities for Professional Engineers by the National Society of Professional Engineers, and lastly, Software Engineering Applications Enabled by Blockchain Technology, a Systematic Mapping Study by Applied Sciences. Now let's move on to the next one, cloud computing. But everyone knows what cloud computing is here. Yes, because I'm going to give you some examples just in case. You have something as simple as your Google Docs or Microsoft Office 365, where you can access your Google Docs and Microsoft Office 365 online, not the local one, through the internet. So this is actually cloud computing as well. You can be more productive because you can access your work from anywhere, whether it's in the office, whether it's work from home, or whether it's shifting between office and work from home. I think cloud services have not looked more important since the pandemic, really. You can share presentations, spreadsheets, you can share Excel sheets, you can share Word doc sheets, and you can all collaborate and make changes at the same time. So this is the power of cloud computing. With cloud services, we now have scalable software that can be accessed anytime and anywhere. Companies with offices globally are now able to share the same system, making data sharing efficient. Now, other forms of cloud computing and cloud services include simple things like even where your WhatsApp is stored and how you can get onto WhatsApp, whether it's on your phone or your computer, or even your calendar or email. The ability to look at your email from your phone or look at your calendar from your phone and from your laptop is made possible only with cloud services. Now, what is edge computing? Edge computing is where the computer happens right where the data is collected and not in the cloud. This is even faster. You need 5G here. For example, the 5G cellular network technology to allow for edge computing systems to work. It is required to have real-time applications on the spot getting pushed to the cloud. Now, I'm going to talk about something very important in edge computing a little bit later, but something that is interesting is, until this day, without edge computing, for example, you have production film people filming things on set, and they're still using physical film quite often because the tape is very large. And what happens is that all these tapes and this film, they get FedEx to wherever the production company is so that it gets rendered and AI gets put into it. But with edge computing, however, this could change. Now, soon enough, a large film, even for Hollywood, could potentially be filmed through edge computing instead of having literally film get posted somewhere else. Now, the last one is quantum computing, and it's fully, if it ever gets fully adopted, and we hope so, it will catapult our computing power exponentially. So if sometimes some of you feel that our computers are not running fast enough, don't worry, there are people working on it. Quantum computers perform calculations based on the probability of an object state before it is measured. It works faster than you think. Quantum computers will be able to provide services and solve problems that weren't possible with traditional computers. So it's all moving very, very quickly. Now, our next education video is to help us understand cloud computing. In the first video, we'll watch on what is cloud computing advantages, how it differentiates with or from traditional web hosting. In the second video, we're going to understand edge computing and what devices are impacted by edge computing.
Technically, most of it is in cables under the ocean, but, well, you get the idea. The internet is synonymous with the cloud. At the consumer level, it usually refers to photo, video, or document storage, like iCloud, OneDrive, or Dropbox, that can be accessed from anywhere. But cloud computing actually refers to anything that involves delivering services over the internet, as opposed to hardware or software installations on individual devices. It all divides into three services: platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, and software as a service. Platform as a service is a model in which a third-party provider hosts app development platforms and tools on its own infrastructure, available to customers over the internet. PaaS models are used for general software development. Infrastructure as a service providers host servers, storage, and other individualized resources over the internet. IaaS offers a variety of storage and memory options for any workload need. And most commonly encountered at the consumer level, Software as a service is software distribution from a third-party provider, making applications available over the internet, like Microsoft Office 365 for productivity and email, or Salesforce and NetSuite for enterprise use. A cloud can be public, selling services to anyone on the internet, or private, supplying services to select individuals. Offerings include Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, IBM Cloud, and Google Cloud Platform. In the end, all cloud services share the same goal: to provide easy, scalable access to resources and services. Specific benefits include self-service provisioning, elasticity, pay-per-use, workload resilience, and migration flexibility.
What is edge computing and why it matters? Edge computing is exactly what it sounds like, computing that takes place at the edge of corporate networks, with the edge defined as the place where end devices access the rest of the network, things like phones, laptops, industrial robots, and sensors. The edge used to be a place where these devices connected so they could deliver data to and receive instructions and download software updates from a centrally located data center or the cloud. Now, with the explosion of the Internet of Things, that model has shortcomings. IoT devices gather so much data that the sheer volume requires larger and more expensive connections to data centers and the cloud. The nature of the work performed by these IoT devices is also creating a need for much faster connections between the data center or cloud and the devices. For example, if sensors and valves at a petroleum refinery detect dangerously high pressure in the pipes, shutoffs must be triggered as soon as possible. With analysis of that pressure data taking place at distant processing centers, the automatic shutoff instructions may come too late. But with processing power placed local to the end devices, latency is less, and that round-trip time can be significantly reduced, potentially saving downtime, damage to property, and even lives. Even with the introduction of edge devices that provide local computing and storage, there will still be a need to connect them to data centers, whether they are on premises or in the cloud. For example, temperature and humidity sensors in agricultural fields gather valuable data, but that data doesn't have to be analyzed or stored in real time. Edge devices can collect, sort, and perform preliminary analysis of the data, then send it along to wherever it needs to go, to centralized applications or some form of long-term storage, again, either on-prem or in the cloud. Because this traffic may not be time-sensitive, slower, less expensive connections, possibly over the internet, can be used. And because the data is pre-sorted, the volume of traffic that needs to be sent at all may be reduced. So the upside of edge computing is faster response time for applications that require it, and slowing the growth of expensive long-haul connections to processing and storage centers. The downside can be security. With data being collected and analyzed at the edge, it's important to include security for the IoT devices that connect to the edge devices and for the edge devices themselves. These devices contain valuable data, but there are also network elements that, if exploited, could compromise other devices that contain stores of valuable assets. With edge computing becoming more essential, it's also important to make sure that the edge devices themselves don't become a single point of failure. Network architects need to build in redundancy and provide failover contingencies in order to avoid crippling downtime if a primary node goes down. The industry has already gone a long way toward addressing the demands of edge computing, and it's becoming mainstream. Its importance is likely to grow even more as the use of real-time applications becomes more prevalent.
Great. Now, the impact of cloud computing. There are 6 impacts here that I'm going to address today. The first is on accessibility of data and applications everywhere. Now, what does this mean? One of cloud computing's best features is the fact that you can work from anywhere, as we mentioned earlier. When data and applications are stored in the cloud, they are accessible via any internet-enabled device. So I won't get into too much detail here since we've talked about this before. But definitely one thing is how this is really stepped up due to the coronavirus outbreak, where we couldn't go to work and we had to work from home. Now, isn't it great that a lot of things are on the cloud? So whether you are on site at your desk or away from your office, you can access and update your project information, order supplies or request services, track time, input timesheets, pay your bills, and collaborate with colleagues. extremely important, by the way. Now, improving communications and efficiency is the next impact. Your customers may have been content to communicate via phone or email a few decades ago, but today's clients want more hands-on ways to work with you. Now, even in engineering, we have many clients that we need to communicate with. Clients can be internal, clients can be external as well. So being able to have online dashboards, up to the minute reporting and unified communication systems enables us to serve our client from anywhere in the world. Internal communications and processes also benefit when you make the switch to a cloud-based solution. You can speak to your colleagues. All these things can be tracked. It doesn't have to only be on your mobile phone, or it doesn't have to be via your telephone. It can be through even chat rooms on the cloud that your computer systems can have at work. Seamless communication between team members and departments are extremely key, and cloud computing does make this all possible. Now, the next one is real-time reporting. Cloud solutions have the ability to offer you the next best thing. Real-time reporting through job management or accounting software takes the guesswork out of budget planning by giving you valuable insight to help you make more informed decisions to strategically drive your business growth. Now, budgets are very important in engineering, and this is something where you need your real-time reporting out there, because we find ourselves having to put together our man hours all the time. So with cloud computing, you can identify where you're making the most money. You can find out who your most profitable, what your most profitable solutions are and projects are. You can see the profitability across clients, and you can view estimated hours for a project against actual time. So you can manage all these efficiencies with cloud computing. And lastly, you can add custom fields to create your own reports. Now, software that scales a service to suit your business is extremely key, and cloud computing makes this possible. You do not want to be in a situation where you run out of storage space, but with cloud computing, you can constantly scale up. Cloud computing allows you to rapidly adapt your systems to support your current business circumstances. When you subscribe to various cloud services, you only need to sign up for the functions you require, and you can increase or decrease your usage as well. So if a particular business sector downscales, you can decrease your usage there too. It works both ways. And an example that I like to share on scalability of software with cloud computing is there was an Auckland-based engineering firm called Steelcraft. They credit cloud computing job management software as being fundamental to supporting their company's growth. From what they say, it enabled them to grow as a business. They would never have been able to grow as rapidly without cloud computing. They grew from 6 staff to 80 staff within 2 years. So can you imagine if everything was still kept on your local drives and papers? This would not have been possible. And they were able to track everything they needed, such as reporting, invoices, inventory, which is very crucial engineering, all in their cloud computing system. Now, the fifth importance on the impact of cloud computing is being able to stay ahead of the game. The idea of updating or replacing long-standing systems can seem really daunting. And we have been through that ourselves in one of our sister companies, Empire Co-Education. We had a lot of reports on paper. But staying ahead of the game is key. And ever since we moved from paper to cloud computing, we have been able to scale the number of customers that we have, or other students, within the education center. Now, in engineering, of course, you can scale your clients very quickly too. So instead of having your clients on paper or on Excel, having the ability of cloud computing allows you to increase from 1 client to 1,000 clients within a very short span of time. Now, this technology is moving at rapid speed at the moment. There's a lot of cloud computing software that can help you make sure you stay ahead of the game. And you don't always feel like you've got to invest a lot of money in cloud computing. There are many ways to get your head around all these finances, and there are even cloud computing project people that can help you do that. They can help you calculate the costs and the efficiencies of moving from a non-cloud computing platform to one. Cloud solutions give you access to the infrastructure equivalent of a large corporate company on a small business budget, leaving you much better position for growth. Lastly, and very important, is Cloud computing enables a strengthened data security network for your organization. Now, every company wants to be sure that their data and business critical information are securely stored on the cloud. Now, this is crucial, especially with client information or in engineering, our IPs, intellectual property. They have to be kept very tightly with us. Now, cloud security benefits include industrial strength physical security to protect against fire or other disasters, redundant backup systems to guard against data loss, professionally designed disaster recovery processes, and end-to-end encryption to protect data moving to and from the cloud. With cloud computing, we can have in place as well 24/7 monitoring for security threats. So this can all be done through your cloud computing software. Now let's get started with cloud computing. If you would like to learn more than what we've showcased today, would be business considerations for edge computing offered by the Linux Foundation on EDX, cloud computing concepts offered by the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign on Coursera, getting started with cloud computing level 1 offered by Aidan Gabrielli on Udemy, the quantum internet and quantum computers, how will they change the world offered by Delft University of Technology on EDX, and understanding edge computing in a cloud computing world offered by LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn Learning is also one of my favorites these days. You can also get badges and certifications through LinkedIn Learning, often for free as well. So please do get that. On research papers, I recommend an overview on edge computing research by the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, IEEE again, Cloud Computing for Engineering Applications by ResearchGate. One of my favorites, as I mentioned earlier, How to Get Started in Quantum Computing, if you're interested in that, by Nature, Software Engineering for the Cloud, a Research Roadmap by IEEE as well, and What is Edge Computing and Why Does It Matter by Network World. Now, the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things describes the network of physical objects, things that are embedded with sensors, software, and other technologies used for the purpose of connecting and exchanging data with other devices and systems over the Internet. Again, it sounds like a very big word, but many of us are using Internet of Things without realizing on a day-to-day basis. As long as you have a product or physical object, and that physical object works with other things, that is called an Internet of Things. It can be something as simple as a buzzer on a door that can tell your phone that there's a buzzer ringing. That is also IoT. Today, people are using to having vast amounts of data flying around the airwaves all around them as they are constantly connected to Wi-Fi, 4G, and now 5G networks. As smart devices become more common in homes, people are also beginning to see the practical potential of being able to link multiple devices together. Now, IoT is not only getting bigger, there are lots of engineers looking at IoT as well and how it can work. Before you know it, I might be able to start my Dyson vacuum cleaner from when I'm out to get it working and to get it moving. We could have something like that robotic before we know it. Intelligence of Things combines Internet of Things with artificial intelligence. These items can communicate and operate without human intervention. So that's IoT, another step up. Now let's watch this next videos. The first video, we will understand what is IoT, the basic concepts of IoT. How does it influence our lifestyle? And the second video, you understand what is the intelligence of things, how AI infused into everyday objects will transform our experience of the world.
The Internet of Things, or IoT, is influencing our lifestyle from the way we react to the way we behave. From air conditioners that you can control with your smartphone, to smart cars providing the shortest route, or your smartwatch which is tracking your daily activities. IoT is a giant network of connected devices. These devices gather and share data about how they're used and the environment in which they're operated. It's all done using sensors. Sensors are embedded in every physical device. It can be your mobile phone, electrical appliances, vehicles, barcode sensors, traffic lights, and almost everything that you come across in day-to-day life. These sensors continuously emit data about the working state of the devices. But the important question is, how do they share this huge amount of data, and how do we put this data to our benefit? IoT provides a common platform for all these devices to dump their data and a common language for all the devices to communicate with each other. Data is emitted from various sensors and sent to IoT platforms securely. IoT platform integrates the collected data from various sources. Further analytics is performed on the data, and valuable information is extracted as per requirements. Finally, the result is shared with other devices for better user experience, automation, and improving efficiency. Let us look at a scenario where IoT is doing wonders. In an AC manufacturing industry, both the manufacturing machine and the belt have sensors attached. They continuously send data regarding the machine health and the production specifics to the manufacturer to identify issues beforehand. A barcode is attached to each product before leaving the belt. It contains the product code, manufacturer details, special instructions, etc. The manufacturer uses this data to identify where the product was distributed and track the retailer's inventory. Hence, the manufacturer can make the product running out of stock available. Next, these products are packed and parceled to different retailers. Each retailer has a barcode reader to track the products coming from different manufacturers, manage inventory, check special instructions, and many more. The compressor of air conditioner has an embedded sensor that emits data regarding its health and temperature. This data is analyzed continuously, allowing the customer care to contact you for the repair work in time. This is just one of the million scenarios. We have smart appliances, smart cars, smart homes, smart cities, where IoT is redefining our lifestyle and transforming the way we interact with technologies. The future of IoT industry is huge. Business Insider Intelligence estimates that 24 billion IoT devices will be installed by 2020, and IDC predicts that IoT revenue will reach around 357 billion in 2019, resulting in a lot of job opportunities in the IT industry. Want to become a part of the IoT revolution? Come and master IoT with Edureka.
We've all heard the increasingly used trendy term, the Internet of Things, and how game-changing it's going to be as we extend sensors, miniature sensors, into everyday objects. Everyday objects will start to give us real-time feedback, and the world essentially will come alive. This is the Internet of Things. But what if we evolve the term a little further? What if instead of the Internet of Things, we enter the realm of the intelligence of things? The intelligence of things is where the Internet of Things meets artificial intelligence. And the future of artificial intelligence is senseless unless we extend it into the world of everyday objects. This idea that as we impregnate intelligence into the world of physical things that we inhabit, the world essentially will come alive. This real-time feedback, this interface that will become enlivened with intelligence will essentially will birth a world that will increasingly talk back to us. Now, how this will change human subjectivity, how this will change the human condition, the space of mind in which we dwell, is in the following way. Increasingly, we'll dovetail our minds to the world, right? And as the world starts talking back, the distinction between self and world will start to disappear. The external space, the external world will increasingly start to feel like an extension of our mind, like an extension of our agency, which will bleed over into a world of predictability. A world that will know what we want before we want it, a world of serendipity, a world in which you look for something, you find something else, and you realize that what you found was more conducive to your needs than what you thought you were looking for. We're talking about a world optimized for human creativity and human enterprise, a world that is responsive, a world that is alive, a world that is intelligent. As I imagine, so it becomes, and this is the very essence of magic. Now, You're pumping all this data, you're pumping all this AI into sensors, into the world of everyday objects. And again, you birth the world, the intelligence of things. The mind will have fully turned itself inside out. We will be inhabiting the condensation of human imagination. The nodes in our brain, the neurons will have spilled out into the world. We will cloak the planet in mind and data. This, my friends, is a singularity of mind and meaning. When everything becomes linked with everything else, matter becomes mind. This is the intelligence of things.
Well, that was a very upbeat video by Jason Sylvia, but I hope that helps you understand a bit better what the intelligence of things are and what it can bring to us. So here's the impact on IoT. Connected factories and equipment operations. Now, what this means is that factories are full of equipment and devices, and each needing maintenance on its own. It's also hard sometimes for us to put together documentation in all these factories and all the equipment. It's also hard to get together product specifications like lab notes, factory environment information. And luckily, the factory of the future has all the assets interconnected into a single ecosystem, making the work of a factory manager so much easier. Using IoT, we can connect all the processes in your factories and integrate all operations and data. Each asset conveys information to the other and takes action in response. And of course, the documentation is stored digitally. A system like this can do wonders since it will provide you with structured data on the productivity of the factory almost effortlessly. It will also be easier to manage buildings and decide how to properly use the space inside the factory. Even people can be connected to this smart ecosystem with the help of wearables. Airbus, for example, linked their employees to an IoT platform, just like they did with their machinery. This innovation increased their working speed, and since now everybody was connected and better informed. Cost saving and productivity increases also through IoT. Companies have used robots and modern machinery in manufacturing long before the next industrial revolution. But it wasn't until the IoT that the control of the machinery has become easy and reliable. In a Morgan Stanley survey, it showed that the use of smart technologies in automation is the main reason why companies apply IoT. Smart automation saves costs and increases operational efficiency. BCG says that automation can reduce production costs by 20 to 40% for every company. IoT engineering is already reducing human intervention into the manufacturing process. But combined with AI, IoT is set to change the business forever. The next impact will be easier equipment management and maintenance. Industrial IoT turns equipment maintenance into a smart and cost-efficient process. The Internet of Things ecosystem provides real data on the state of the equipment, tracking depreciation and predicting failure before it happens. With this technology, you know exactly what to expect from the machinery and your manufacturing facility and when to expect it. Identifying problems beforehand means being better equipped to manage true maintenance and repair that can be scheduled at the right moment without any delay or interruption. IoT gives you better control over both your assets and time as well. The fourth is smart manufacturing process. Thanks to IoT, all assets work in relation to each other. And you can see all the manufacturing operations as a single system. IoT in manufacturing changes the way we think about production lines. It doesn't just provide you with individual data on each device, but offers structured data on the entire production flow. It becomes easier to monitor every operation and manage all the phases of manufacturing. Seeing the entire big picture definitely has its benefits. First, now you get to know the weak spots and bottlenecks in your manufacturing process and fix them before they turn into real problems. Second, with IoT technology, you can manage the supply base on the fresh market data, speeding up or slowing down manufacturing if needed. Third, IoT in manufacturing allows you to design a better product. Because technology tracks the whole life cycle of your product from creation to endpoint and even further, IoT devices give you information on the way people interact with it, bringing better experience to your customers. And for the last one, smart resources. Well, smart use of resources with IoT tracks the use of all resources and reduces waste. The data collected by the sensors and IoT devices can show whether the assets are used efficiently and how to resolve the issue if they aren't. They predict potential threats to energy systems and control energy consumption by managing the use of electricity in production and around facilities. They can even automatically switch off the equipment when it's not used for some time. Now, isn't that great? Now, the next one. Let's get started with some learning. And we recommend an introduction to programming, the Internet of Things, offered by University of California, Irvine on Coursera. The Internet of Things, offered by IBM. Introduction to Internet of Things, offered by Stanford School of Engineering. Introduction to the Internet of Things by Curtin University. Introduction to the Internet of Things and Embedded Systems, offered by the University of California, Irvine on Coursera. And on additional learning materials, I recommend AI in Internet of Things by ResearchGate, Intelligence of Things, Opportunities and Challenges by the IEEE, Software Engineering for the Internet of Things by IEEE again, The Essentials of IoT for Modern Engineers by Autodesk, and lastly, the IoT, an overview by ResearchGate. And we come to our last educational segment of this webinar, and this is Robotic Process Automation, also known as RPA. Now, RPA can handle repetitive and time-consuming tasks. These tasks include document analysis and processing, which is plenty in many organizations. With these mundane tasks managed by robots, engineers are able to spend time on research and development work to improve technical process. Now, RPA has become very interesting. What has been happening in a lot of industries, even outside engineering, is companies are told, just go get your office RPA ready. And you have a lot of people going, what is RPA and how do we do it? Well, have no fret. It's not about having to code it up yourself. Specifically, sometimes it's about understanding the processes in place, and it's also about using some softwares to help you increase your process as well. So we're going to talk about RPA in further detail on this segment. Now, the next one is Intelligent Automation, IA, which is a combination of RPA and AI. This is capable of simulating human interaction. It can even understand and respond to implied client communication based on historical data. So for example, this is moving towards having recorded messages, whether it's on Zoom, Skype, phone, and having IA understand what your client wants and being able to respond to your client better based on past historical interactions with your client. Sounds a bit scary, isn't it? But businesses are going to be loving this because it's going to improve their efficiency by a mile. Now, in our last video, we will understand defining RPA, where RPA can assist a business use case, extracting data with optical character recognition, benefits of having an intelligent RPA solution, benefits of having a low-code environment, benefits of having concurrency support, and benefits of having an RPA as a service solution.
Hey everyone, today let's talk about RPA, or Robotic Process Automation. In my opinion, the definition lies more in the terms process automation and less in actual robots. But RPA is changing the software world, much like physical robots have changed the world that we live in every day. For example, take a vending machine. There's not a person standing there sorting all your money and vending the goods. It's automated because it's a tedious task. Now, RPA is doing the same thing in the software world for tedious or repetitive tasks. But for things like IT, or even business process management, RPA is not going to help. And that's because these require more specialized skills. So where can RPA assist? Well, let's start with an example inspired by one of my favorite TV shows. Let's say we've got a disgruntled employee. We're going to call him Pete. Now, Pete has to take a number of documents that are stored, digitally, and then convert them into forms that he then has to file. So this is a very tedious task. So he has to take all of these forms, write them out manually, and then finally actually go and file them. So this process, let's say he has to do this, 10,000 times. That means, Pete's going to be pretty unhappy about this because this is a very tedious, repetitive task. It's something that, with RPA, he could actually automate. So let's see what Pete would do if he wanted to set up an automation to do this flow. So the first thing he has to do is identify what's the data, where is it coming from? So in this particular example, the data is already in a computer somewhere. And let's say that it's coming in through email, or maybe his coworker, Kelly, is manually inputting them from, phone calls with customers. So they take the customer forms, they put them into the computer. Now, Pete has to extract data, right? So that's going to be the first thing that RPA can help with. So with OCR, or optical character recognition, along with the data that's in the computer, Pete's able to pull out data. And what he's going to do is actually extract that data for further processing. So that data can be things like the customer's name and the info. Let's say in the customer form, it's the complaints that make up that information. So taking that data, so the next thing Pete's going to do is, let's say, validate it. So make sure that none of the data is corrupt and all of the data looks good. Finally, he has to input it into a digital form. So he puts it into a digital form, and finally, he sends it off to a printer. Now, at this phase, all Pete really has to do is take the final forms that are printed out and then file them. And that's going to be a whole lot easier to do than doing this manually for all 10,000 customer complaint forms that are coming in. So that's where RPA can really assist with tedious, repetitive tasks that require things like clicking through user interfaces, copying and pasting data, or kind of other things like optical character recognition where you have to extract data. So when choosing an RPA solution, which is going to enable you to do this type of automation, I'd say there's 4 major things that you really need to be looking for. Now, the first one I'm going to start with, you want to make sure that your RPA tool is intelligent. Now, in this particular flow, Pete used a lot of capabilities. So he used OCR, optical character recognition. In addition, he used different data manipulation techniques. So this enables Pete to do things like extract, input data, validate it. And finally, he even had a function to be able to print something out, create a physical piece of paper from a software-based automation. That's just scratching the tip of what robot RPA can do today. So another thing RPA can do is things like AI or machine learning to train a model to recognize not just simple characters, but maybe even images. So that's something that Pete might want to augment this automation with in the future. So that's one thing you want to make sure is that your RPA tool is intelligent. Number 2, low code. So RPA is really only going to be effective if the users that are creating these automation find that process to be easy. Otherwise, management might choose to actually just have their employees do it manually if creating this type of automation was too time consuming. So a low code RPA environment is going to enable Pete to do things like drag and drop components and have minimal touch to actually get this automation created end to end. Number 3, concurrency. So this is going to be the ability to run multiple robots at the same time, multiple automation tasks. So for the 10,000 customer complaint forms, say this task takes 15 seconds, that's a lot of time. So imagine if you could launch multiple robots and divvy up that work. Well, you could get through the task at hand much more quickly. So an RPA solution should have concurrency support. And the last one I want to mention here is RPA as a service. Now, an as a service model is going to come with a number of advantages. For one, it's going to give you shorter time to value. And that's because Pete doesn't have to worry about spinning up his own infrastructure, installing the software, managing that environment. He can just log in and start building these automations right away. That brings me to my next point, currency. So not concurrency, but currency, which is keeping up with the latest versions that are available. So RPA and the world of RPA is changing quite rapidly. And so with some of the intelligent capabilities enabled within RPA, say a new version of OCR comes out and he wants to use it, well, with an RPA as a service capability, you can get updates more quickly. You're more current with the latest versions of software. So you get to use those latest components and maybe OCR 2.0 kind of helps fix some of the bugs with pulling data from customer complaint forms. Finally, I think the last one that I want to mention here is that it allows you to collaborate. So imagine that Pete builds this automation, publishes it, and then now wants to share it with the Nashua branch of his company so that they can take advantage of the same process to automate this flow and kind of file customer complaint forms. So as a service environments generally are multi-tenant and enable you to collaborate with your coworkers. So this was a quick overview of RPA. RPA tools are quickly growing in popularity, and so is the scope of what RPA is able to actually automate. Now, if you like this video, have any questions or comments, be sure to drop a like or a comment below. As always, stay tuned and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Thank you. RPA is growing very rapidly, and the scope of what RPA is able to automate is also growing rapidly. Now, if you want to see what IBM is doing in the RPA space, be sure to check out the links in the description below.
Now, I highly recommend IBM Cloud as well for all your information. Please do find them on YouTube. Now, the impact of RPA, there are many of them. I have up to 8 today, and I'll try to race this through because I do know that we've overrun on the webinar time. So why RPA when your systems are not working just fine without, even if your systems are working fine without it, RPA is extremely crucial in putting your processes in place and making you even more efficient. Now, the first impact is accuracy. RPA offers improved services to processes that have a higher probability of human error, thereby increasing efficiency and accuracy. Robots are reliable and consistent and do not whine when expected to work tirelessly. They also reduce the cases of reworks and improve the output quality drastically. The best part here is that robots follow all rules to the dot, thereby producing 100% accuracy in the process. And let's not forget what adds more sweetness to this is that the fast implementation of this technology. RPA optimizes capabilities that multiply the organizational capacity. Better IT and support management. RPA improves the operational quality of the service desk and monitors the network. This enables companies to handle short-term spikes without having to recruit extra staff or train them. Better productivity. There are no work hour limitations. The RPA works round the clock, as we mentioned earlier, 24/7 and 365 days a year, catering to anyone within the company. It also allows for much better care of services due to less errors and better accuracy. RPA is cost effective. It significantly reduces the cost of manual labor by the automation of repetitive processes, and it also eliminates the need for back office resources. Improve analytics. Having access to error-free, accurate data from various sources will improve the quality of analytics in your processes as well. This leads to better decision-making and overall to the betterment of process execution. The sixth, increase customer satisfaction. Delivering better quality of work with high accuracy and improved customer-client interaction leads to increased customer and client satisfaction. This involves not only external, but internal clients even. So it increases customer satisfaction. It also increases employee satisfaction. And it also adds to the goodwill of the business. And next is employee productivity. With RPA, it can increase this as it ultimately facilitates humans and robots to do just what they excel at. As RPA frees the employees from their mundane tasks, they can focus more on client and customer interaction. They can focus more on making sure that everything is put in place properly with human interaction between employees, and they can also manage other things that humans are great at, such as looking for errors sometimes that the computer can't even tell. So a lot of these things that it frees up us humans to do and a lot better. Now, all this would mean better business. And lastly, performance. The performance of a software robot is definitely better than an employee, as it has the ability to do error-free tasks in minimal time and at a much faster pace. Now, to advance your learning on RPA, this is what we recommend. The Beginner's Guide to RPA by Automation Anime on Udemy. Now, Automation Anywhere is great for RPA. I do recommend looking at them more often if you're interested in this topic. Getting started with RPA, offered by Automation Anywhere again. Introduction to RPA, Automation Anywhere. This is offered by LinkedIn Learning. RPA, an overview, offered by Brian Lam on Udemy. And RPA Lifecycle, Introduction, Discovery and Design. Again, offered by Automation Anywhere on Coursera. And lastly, on research papers, I recommend RPA by Springer Link. RPA, a scientific and industrial systematic mapping study by ResearchGate. The Future Digital Workforce, RPA, by the Journal of Information Systems and Technology Management. Towards Decision Management for RPA by the University of Potsdam, Germany. And What is RPA by Edureka. Great, so we've come to the end of our learning process. I'm great. I hope all of you have had a lot of information that has been helpful. I'd like to see if we can start interacting perhaps. So let's start and try to think together on a few things. And I'm going to answer some of your chats as we go along here as well. Okay, so let's think together. How else would you like to see innovation in your field of study or sector? If anybody would like to share, the chat room is open. Anybody like to share a little bit more about that? My screen has just stopped sharing for some reason. I'm gonna just click that, get that started again. Okay, I see that Eric has responded to a fair amount of questions there. Was there anything that I needed to address, Eric, in particular? I see some in Q&A. What opportunities and learning platforms we can learn more in upskilling ourselves to meet the demands of the future? Hi, Maria. Thank you for your question. So in response to this, please do look at the free learning materials that we provided throughout the webinar on each topic. I would highly recommend that. And definitely, you know, the process is always different for everybody, but please always remember you can take your time to learn. A little bit a day makes a huge difference as well. Problem-solving function of AI, can it be geared to house cleaning, which is a typical female work in the house? Yes, absolutely. Christetta, thank you for your question. I don't know if you've seen vacuum robots. There are many brands of it these days, but there are these round robots that go around the house. Now, IoT can definitely be built in together with it to make sure that you know, the robot can potentially even kick off from your phone. I think that'll be very interesting. I even have a friend, you know, not to say specifically on house cleaning, but I have a friend that created a patent, and it's his own IP. And basically, he's got a rice cooker that can start up from your kitchen on your phone. So you can just make a decision. You can put everything in your rice cooker, or you can even put anything in a cooker, not necessarily rice. And you can turn it on when you feel like just before you come home. You know, there's a lot of work from home going on, but as you can imagine, Christetta, like this is one of the biggest things that, you know, AI can solve with IoT together to get things going. But yeah, other things with robotics is Amazon has just announced Alexa on wheels, and it's called Astro. It's like a pet robot dog. And what's really interesting with it is that Astro can literally guard your house. I know this is not really a female work in the house, but it's still something that people want in the house. It can even tell you if there are visitors that they can't recognize as well. So it's kind of like a pet security. And that has Alexa functions which has AI embedded in it. So it's all getting really smart right now. Great. Data security. So data security is one of those things where, as much as cloud computing can help manage it, as humans, we are also responsible for our own data security. One thing that we do under Empire Code Software Development, for example, is that we ensure that there is data security through changing the password of the database every 3 months. How strong your password is also very important. I always recommend that passwords should be as long as at least 24 characters. Okay, so a lot of these things that we can do as well to manage data security. So another third one in terms of password, I'd like to add, since that just came to mind, is not using the same password for everything that you have. You know, quite often, for example, you can have an email to use to log in with. It can be business email, it can be your personal email, but you use the same password for everything. So I recommend a password subscription or a software to manage your passwords as well, to prevent any hacking or any hijacking from happening. Okay, Nahid, you asked for the link to the certificate. That will be provided very soon at the end of the webinar. Thank you for your questions. Other things to think about as well would be, how else would you like to see, apart from how else would you like to see innovation in your field or sector? You know, please feel free to have a think about that at home. Like Christetta's idea of even putting it in your own house. What skill sets do you think are required to achieve the innovation you have mentioned? As I said, you do not have to be an engineer to be an engineer. Everything can be self-taught, you know, I believe. As long as you have the interest, please do always go for it. As a lot of things are available. Being inquisitive is very important. James Dyson, for example, is a very inquisitive person. He'll look at a device, he'll open it because he's curious how it works. And then he'll think about how he can put it back together in a better way to work more efficiently. So being curious is also very key. Please always feel curious. Please always feel like you want to ask questions. Asking questions is very important. I ask questions all the time and every day as well. So regardless of how old you are and where you are in your careers, always ask questions, whether it's asking yourself or asking someone. If you have experience in any of the innovations mentioned in today's training, do you have tips and tricks to share with attendees on this call? Now, I think some of you, if you may be a little bit shy now to share, please don't worry, you know, please feel free to share within your friends and within your cohort at university. If some of you are in engineering, please do share. I find it, you know, having an engineering degree myself and being an engineer myself, you know, quite often as engineers, we find ourselves sitting behind a computer trying to solve things on our own. You know, we don't find ourselves sharing the information we have. But just remember, when you share, you learn as well, because we can't always think of a solution in totality. We need a team to do it together. And whether it's friends or colleagues or university mates or schoolmates, always remember, share your experience with everyone. Would you have additional free learning on innovation in this sector to share with attendees on this call? Now, if any of you have free learning information, please do feel free to share it with us as well. You know, at Empire Code Launchpad, we use information to share on. We work very closely with UNESCO to make sure that everybody underprivileged, and in all sorts of segments in society, women in particular is our biggest focus. If you have any free learning resources, please share with us and we will share on as well. Okay, great. So the next one is additional reading. Again, the focus on this webinar series is on women in innovation, and I would like to inspire you, if you are a lady or a girl on the call right now, Inspiring Women in Innovation, Paving the Way for the New Generations by Ochoa. That is absolutely great blog that I recommend you reading. Latest Women in Innovation Awards announced supporting female engineers by the manufacturer. That is all the lists of women in innovation. The gender effect on a firm's innovative activities in the emerging economies. Now, this is also very interesting. And we look at it on how women are still finding themselves a place, especially in engineering and within emerging economies. The 2020 watch list of women in innovation. Do take a look at that. And lastly, Women in Innovation, Understanding Barriers to Innovation. This is another additional reading, definitely worth everybody looking at. Additional free training. So not too long ago, we ran another webinar with UNESCO, and the webinar was Empowering Women Through Technology for Sustainable Goals 5 and 17. So if you have somebody you want to recommend this to, it includes how do you set up Wi-Fi at home? Now, a lot of you that are on this call, because you're already using a computer and you're already on this webinar, you understand digital literacy very well, and you obviously know how to set up a Wi-Fi. Now, this is great for people that you know may not know. It can be even your grandmother. It can even be people that you're supporting or teaching in underprivileged homes or sectors. We want to educate as many people as possible for free. This is our initiative with UNESCO, and I'd like to share everything that we have with you as well to share on. So here are some learning resources. If you sign up for an account at Empire code LoveSpec, the website is www.lovespec.com. Eric also has it on the chat room at the moment. Click on your account profile and you'll see access to all free learning resources. UNESCO also has a web link where they have all their resources available, and this will be made available to you as well. So please make use of all this free learning. We're here to share and help you out with achieving your goals, whether it's for yourself, for someone else, or for greater good. Now, question and answers. I think I've answered all the questions. So because the webinar has ran on by 20 minutes, I won't continue with this, but the most exciting bit of this webinar for all of you now to participate in is our survey. So if you go to bit.ly/SDG-ET, which doesn't stand for the alien, but stands for engineering and technology, you may go on there now and fill in your survey, and we will get your certificates on the way to you as a thank you for attending the webinar, and as a thank you for making an effort, being brave, and coming in here to learn today and to understand how to innovate. Okay. John Knox, the presentation on the robotics reminds me of the first time I saw cleaner robots in Australia cleaning a swimming pool. Yes, they're great, aren't they? Now, those robots are just something that have really been a lifesaver for many households. Definitely with swimming pools in Australia, the US. We don't have that here as much, unfortunately, but that is innovation. And in a lot of countries, especially where labor gets more and more expensive, a lot of the work has moved to managing these innovations. So what I do want to always say is that, when it comes to innovation, we really have to come and embrace it, and we really have to upskill ourselves to get there. And John, you're asking another question as well. What are some ways that we can present some important data related to school operations, specifically related to the cloud computing? Some important data related to school operations. I guess, okay, one thing I can think of would be how you present test data. So tests, like school tests. A lot of tests these days are still on paper. I think the US has really done a great job in moving tests online for their schools. And I think out in our region, even Singapore, we are still extremely far behind. We find a lot of students sitting in test halls, having paper and putting it there. And then we have teachers collecting the test paper, and then we have them getting marked. In my time, what I heard is that, when I sat for the exams in Singapore, particularly my Cambridge O-level exams, I was told that the papers would get sent to the UK, and there have been instances where papers have gotten lost. That's really scary, isn't it? Now with cloud computing, this is where things can really change for schools. You have all your tests done by students as long as they're able to do tests, and it all goes straight to the cloud with backup. So I think the most important thing is that cloud backup is extremely key. I mean, we use cloud software at Empire called LoveSpec. We work with Amazon AWS, we work with Microsoft Azure, and we always make sure that our data is backed up, especially with anything crucial. So yeah, so I guess this is one of the way moving tests online. It can even be more extensive. It can even include potentially understanding your students and how they learn and improving the processes as well of learning. So as you know, to create, I guess, ironically speaking, a non-robotic society. You want learning to be for everyone, and I think individualized learning is extremely important in getting your talents up and running in all our societies if we want students to definitely be more innovative as well. Crash, if you ask about robotic process automation, where can I learn online, and what course or subject can I start learning? Now, I am going to, Eric has shared the link. Thank you, Eric. So I'm going to move back to RPA a little bit. And under RPA here, if you can see my screen, Crash. Okay, so we've got a lot of interesting learning materials. If you just remember this, Crash, remember Automation Anywhere on Udemy. That the Automation Anywhere is great. There's so much information on RPA, and I'll recommend you get yourself started there. LinkedIn Learning has a great introduction to RPA as well. That's somewhere you can go to. If you want to advance your skills on RPA, it can move a lot further with coding as well. So having some computer science knowledge greatly helps your, it helps you with RPA, and it helps you with understanding how you're going to code things in RPA. For example, I looked at creating a curriculum on RPA, focus on RPA for our education center before, and that was basically using Python to get some RPA processes in place. So with Python, you can get involved in getting your Excel spreadsheets automated, your emails automated, all these things like email replies can be automated based on what people ask you. It just keeps getting smarter. So this is what I would recommend. So I'm going to move back to the link, but there's something very important that Eric has shared as well before we go away today is on the chat, you notice that Eric has shared 2 more webinars on this series that we'll be having. One is Supporting Skills for Women Innovators in Law and the Arts. This is a fun webinar. Please go on it. It's so fun. Like, you're going to find out how Netflix does it. You're going to find out how Hollywood does it. All things come into place. It's not just about law. We have arts in place as well. So under the arts, we've got the music industry, we've got the film industry, and also, of course, the arts industry, but you're going to see how innovation comes in place. And then the last one, which is our closing webinar, that's on the 7th of October. This is also something that everyone should attend, particularly with coronavirus now, and there's so much talk about it, and you want to understand how to be innovative in medicine and pharmacy. Please join that webinar on Supporting Skills for Women Innovators. Focus on the industry sector next Thursday, the 7th of October. The links are on the chat. And they're also on my LinkedIn. If you'd like to follow me on LinkedIn, I'm Jasmine Tang, Empire Code. So you can follow me on LinkedIn, and I post things every week. And you also have all this registration information. I even have a post on an innovator a week every Thursday. It kick-started thanks to UNESCO, and I started putting on an innovator every day, and I've just had overwhelming responses on my LinkedIn on sharing an innovator a week, and I've decided that I'm going to do that for years to come as well. So, please go ahead and look me up on LinkedIn. More than happy to share all this information with you. If you let me know that you're part of the webinar and the seminar, please feel free to connect with me as well. I always enjoy connecting with people that I teach as well on webinars. Okay, great. Have I covered all the questions, Eric? Is there anything that I might have missed?
Yeah, we've covered everything for today. Thank you very much, Jasmine.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you for joining the webinar today. Don't forget your survey. And I will not be running the next 2 webinars. We will have Aaron, who has a lot of background, and we'll have also Lorraine on the one for medicine. So I won't be seeing you here. So if you do want to reach out to me, as mentioned, I'll see you on LinkedIn. And okay, thank you, everybody. We'll close the webinar right now. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.